Have a good number here tonight. Appreciate everyone coming out, and it's also good to see a lot of our young people back, and well, a couple of the not so young that have been on the Costa Rica campaign. In fact, after the announcement, Jim is going to give a, he said brief, now we'll see about that, but anyway, he said a brief update on the trip, so I know you'll want to hear what he has to say about that. I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, but how many of us have ever found ourselves guilty of passing judgment, drawing conclusions based upon circumstances, things we see? I dare say we all have at some time or another. Let me give you a personal example. Last week at the tent meeting, I believe it was on Tuesday or Wednesday night, I was preaching and I saw a young lady walk into the tent. She was very scantily attired, and I noticed she had scars from extensive drug use, almost anorexic. And I thought, she is going to want money. I was sure of it. As soon as services were over, one of the men came up to me and said, "There's a young lady here that'd like to talk to you." And I thought, yep, here we go. So I went over and introduced myself to this girl. She told me her name, and she said, "Can I talk to you?" I said, "Yeah." So we sat down there on the front row of chairs, and she told me her name, and I said, "What can I do for you?" She said, "Well, I'm from Florida." And again, red flags, traveling needs money. "I'm from Florida. My dad died." And again, all the while, I have this preconceived idea. She said, "My dad died." And she said, "I'm having a hard time." She said, "I saw the tent, and I just wanted to come in and have somebody pray with me." And she began to cry. And she said, I told her, I said, "Well, what happened to your dad? Was it unexpected?" She said, "Well, my mom died 6 months ago, and he didn't want to live, so he drank himself to death." And she said, "I've come up to bury him." And she said, "I can't deal with this." Needless to say, by then I was feeling this high for having misjudged her motives for coming. But I guess in my defense, preachers do become jaded along with elders, because there's so many people coming and they're always wanting food, money, or something of that nature. But that instance taught me a great lesson, or reminded me of a lesson that I've known. We can't judge a book by its cover. We can't always judge people by appearance. And I invited the young lady to come back the next night after we had prayer with her, and I said, "Why don't you come back to the services tomorrow night?" And she said, "Well, with the funeral, I don't think I can, and then I'll be going back to Florida." But I couldn't help but think that there's so many people out there in the world like that, with nowhere to turn in times of sorrow and loss. She had no church family. She had no family there in Hillsboro. She was going to bury her dad the next day, and she just wanted somebody to pray with her. And I don't know, down the road, maybe she'll look back. I don't even know if she'll remember who it was that had that tent meeting, but we gave her some materials, some tracts and things when she left, and wished her well. But I really felt bad drawing a judgment based upon her appearance. Because, if it'd been somebody driving up in a nice late model car, wearing stylish clothing, thought would have probably never crossed my mind. But it was strictly appearance. And I would just suggest that we need to be very careful drawing conclusions based upon, and I know there are some circumstances where it's wise to draw conclusions based upon, but in this situation it wasn't wise, it wasn't right. We never know that person that we look at as being undesirable, that person that we really don't want to be with, don't want to be seen with. We never know how much good we can do that person, what kind of influence we can have with that person as far as reaching out to them on a spiritual level. And so I say that not only to relate what happened to me, but I relate it in an effort to hopefully help you not make the same mistake. Whether maybe it's a coworker, maybe it's a neighbor, it may be a total stranger that you see on the street. And something I hope Bill won't mind me quoting him, but Bill told me something years ago that I've tried to remember. I was talking about the people that we wind up helping out of the pantry that sometimes don't really need it. They're just looking for a handout. But I remember Bill said, well, it's better to help somebody that doesn't need it than to not help somebody that does need it. And I've tried to remember that. I think that's judicious advice. And so when we see someone, we have an opportunity, maybe we should reach out, do what we can, and if they're not being honest, we don't have to answer for that. They're the ones that will answer for having lied or misrepresented their situation. Think about these things. We're going to extend the invitation of Christ, though, at this time, sing the song of encouragement that was announced. If you're here and you've never yet become a Christian, you have the opportunity to become one, coming in faith, repenting and turning from your sins, confessing the name of Christ, and being baptized for the forgiveness of your sins. Or as a child of God, maybe you've wandered away, maybe you've not been what you ought to be, and you need to come back and make changes in your life. You can do that as well. Whatever your need might be this evening, let me encourage you to take care of it while together we stand and while we sing.